She is in Zoom. She is in the Zoom. She's ready? I've asked her, oh, she's starting her video now. So when she speaks, we'll be able to see her.
Did you say that? Did you look it up? For 25 years, you've seen this dangerous poker. And no mention of the
Yeah.
Folks, we're going to get started in just a moment. We're managing technical issues.
Madam City Attorney, should we report on action taken in the closed session as well at the outset of this special meeting, or should we defer that to the outset of the regular meeting?
But you do need to announce that Ms. Flavor's remote, and you voted on it, and it was unanimous.
Okay, so we just had a closed session. The only reportable action we took at the closed session was to approve the vice mayor's request to appear remotely under the just cause provision of AB 2449, and it was a unanimous vote.
And you did that before you went into closed session?
Yes, that was before we closed the session. Okay, so that said, the vice mayor is still remote. And we'll call the meeting to order, confirm quorum. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Lang.
Here.
Councilmember Meadows. Here. Councilmember Weinberg.
Here.
Vice Mayor Fliger. Mayor Daley.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, we're good.
We are going to receive a presentation from staff about the community engagement plan for the downtown park with parking.
Good evening, Mayor, honorable council members. Can you hear me? Great. We are excited to have Watchery Design and MIG here tonight, our consultants for the downtown park and parking. They will be providing an update on the community engagement plan as well as the next steps for the project for the city council and for the public. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to the wonderful team.
Hello. Hi, thank you. Next slide, we'll do a quick round of introductions of our design team here today. My name is Taylor Kim. I am with Watchery Design. I'm a project manager and architect for this project. And I have here with me Anita.
Hi, I'm Anita Gupta. I'm a structural engineer and I also with Watchery Design.
Hi, Evan's not here with us today, but I'm Karthik Kumar, Director of Community Design and Landscape Architect.
Hi folks, my name is Noe Nojola. I'm with MIG. I'm here to help.
So a quick overview of the project. We are looking at a new park at Parking Plaza 1 and 2. And this is not the design. This was what was provided in the RFP, but we will be looking at a new design and going through a extensive community engagement to get feedback from the community on moving forward with this project. So as I said, I'm with Watchery Design. We are a design firm specializing in parking design. We have a team of architects, structural engineers, and parking planners. And we are committed to developing the best parking solutions for our clients. And a little bit about MIG.
Yeah, hi. MIG has been in practice for over 43 years. Parks design and planning, as well as community engagement is a core expertise of ours. We've worked with a lot of cities around the country and all over the Bay Area. And most of our work is with public entities, and we absolutely love designing public spaces and parks. And in addition, we have a number of practice areas to support the process in-house. Next slide, please.
And I'm just going to kind of give a bird's eye view of the scope of work for this project. The project will start with community engagement as the beginning of phase 1. We're going to be hosting several different events with the community, from focus group meetings to community-wide workshops. We'll also be attending tabling events out and about in the community, such as like the farmers market, the wine festival, First Fridays, and we're still working through what some of the events will be. It's also going to be augmented by city staff. They'll be out and about and also talking about the project and getting feedback from the community. We will also be distributing project information. We'll host a website that we'll be updating as the process unfolds so the community can stay up to date on where the project is at. We'll be creating social media copies to be distributed on whatever platform the city is choosing to use. There will also be flyers. In addition, there'll be advertisements in the newspapers, links from your website, so that the community will be able to kind of get to the project information. While the community engagement is happening, we're going to be doing several studies. We're going to be doing our site survey. The geotechnical report will be worked on. They'll be out there taking borings and sampling the soil. Noise study, the traffic study, as well as the environmental report. These will all be being worked on at the same time in tandem with the community engagement. Once we begin design during these early phases, we're going to be developing 3 concept alternatives. And as we're working through those, we'll also be providing cost feedback as we go, with the goal at the end of kind of a concept design phase. We're going to choose one concept and be able to move forward with that into our next design phases. During this process, we also have a consultant who's going to be doing grant and funding research to help with the project. We're going to be delivering what we're calling 65% and 95% design documents. We traditionally call these our design development and construction document phases. It'll be submitted for plan review. And once the documents are complete and permitted, we'll have a set ready for bid. And that will be our 100% design documents set.
I am going to ask for the folks in the seats to be quiet if I can. You guys probably can't hear each other when you're whispering, but because of the acoustics of the room, I can hear every single word crystal clear from right here.
So we wanted to run through some of our project experience as giving you a sort of design and experiential context for the work that is to come. This is the Los Altos Community Center. You're familiar with this. MIG designed the landscape and open spaces for this. It's a very engaging community center with the intent of making it accessible and inclusive and fun and usable for people of all ages. The community, essentially. Next slide, please. We pay a lot of attention to planting. It's a very diverse and very sustainable, low water use, and pollinator-friendly palette. Next slide, please. And as you can see from the photographs, the idea is to create a space that is for the community and for all kinds of people, seniors, children, people who are gathering, people who are just spending time there on an afternoon. And it's been a very successful and beautiful place to visit and experience so far. Next slide. So this is another project we recently completed in Pasadena, and we wanted to showcase this because it's a similar downtown condition. There is parking involved, there is play, there is also a big multi-use park space as part of the project, all next to an existing historic theater. Next slide, please. There are moments within the landscape where we invite people, create a focus, and allow people to sort of slowly wander into the park. Next slide. And within the park, one of the core functions there is this outdoor amphitheater, stage, and a multipurpose lawn that allows for events of a certain scale to occur very successfully, and really kind of lights up that space when events happen, but also functions very well as an open space. The parking is designed to be functioning as a plaza, has the potential to be a multifunctional space as well. Next slide, please. And there is a play area, and we can talk more in detail about the nuances, but it's a very successful small play area within downtown. Next slide, please. This is another project that's comparable in scale to the park that we are envisioning here. And we wanted to present this because it's more garden-like in its appearance and programming. And it's intended to be a quieter park, places to experience nature, places to sit, so less intensively programmed, more softly programmed. Next slide, please. So there are moments within the landscape where you're sitting within planting, sitting within water treatment, sitting within access to walkways and spaces, and generally a very engaging experience. Next slide, please. And also spaces for the community. In this case, this is associated with a hospital and a healing garden, so the spaces are sort of built to respond to that program and idea. This is Yanaguana Garden. It was voted the 7th best public park in the United States in a recent poll last week. And this is in San Antonio. We think a lot about the experience of walking, shade, and how we integrate planting within those experiences. Next slide. Again, a park that is truly built for the community, that is flexible, allows for the presence of art and integration of art, but also for multiple activities to take place. There's a splash pad, there's this outdoor chess area, there are outdoor sports. People use it for yoga and dance practices. Next slide, please. And it's a very green park, and a lot of existing trees as well, but also a lot of new trees planted. And there is a lot of flexibility in how people want to use the space. People move around chairs depending on whether they want more sun or more shade. It's accessible for bikes to go through. Next slide, please. And it's active and extremely attractive place to be in and spend time with your family in the evenings as well. This is a park in downtown Fort Worth that we're currently working on, and the reason we are presenting this is because of the downtown context. It's a much more a park with a lot of topography. If you go to the next slide, there are places that actually allow you to create a sense of place in an area that was primarily a traffic intersection to begin with. So that is sort of a vision for this place. And that vision is sort of carried through in other experiences that are not so grand, but more subtle in human scale. Next slide. We wanted to share the New York City Civic Plaza because it's, again, this is a park, this could also be a plaza, and there's opportunity for events to play out within the space. And this is a very successful example of that. Next slide, please. And lastly, we want to touch upon the streets. There are streets that are fronting this park, but a new park parcel, and we want to talk about how we can transform these streets into places that are attractive for merchants as well as for the people to use it, and it's also multifunctional space. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. All right. On to you.
No. Okay. I told him to move the microphone. Okay, so I just want to just share with you our sort of overarching game plan without going into too much detail as far as what we want to do in terms of engagement. So of course, the first phase is preparing to engage, getting ready, getting the materials ready, gathering initial feedback from key stakeholders, some of whom we have in the room, and really just preparing the plan for engagement overall. I know this is a bit of an eye test, but you see some of on the small to the right, you see some of the very kind of details of what we want to do. The red are check-in meetings with you, council and staff, to make sure that we are, really iterative in our process. The second phase is the visioning phase, what we call develop the park vision, really get into a discussion with the community to understand their priorities, talk about the ideas, the overall character. We're not really dealing with design at this point, but it's overall vision. What are the key components of the park in the future? This is where we really start the public-facing components of things. So the website, email blasts, social media, all these things. In addition, focus groups. We want to meet with specific people, specific groups, to talk to them about what they see, ask them similar questions, get into part 3. Actually, after part 2, you see the small little develop concept design alternatives. This is where we start really coming up with 3 designs, 3 alternatives that we can then, in part 3, bring to the community and showcase them. These will be not vastly different, but they will be different enough where people will be able to say, I like the component of this one or not that one. This one's leading. Usually out of those 3 alternatives, you don't pick one. It ends up being one that's a lead and then others that have components that people like. Again, this is about really publicizing these 3 concepts, helping the community understand that this is about to happen, bring a survey out to the community, and really get down to the preferences. Which ones are their favorites? Some of the actual activities are very much similar. Tabling events, materials, workshops, open houses, a variety of platforms to engage with multiple stakeholders. Once we get the advice on the alternatives, then we get into refining that one alternative, and then finally bring that back in stage 4, which is celebrating the preferred concept, the community preferred concept. Go back out to the community and say, is this the right location? And then after this, of course, the right kind of direction, confirming all the final design requirements, and really, at the end of the day, we want to push that design towards design development and get that more clear. So thank you very much. Happy to answer questions after this.
So once we have a chosen concept, we will be moving into the rest of design, and our check-ins with you won't stop there. We are planning to come back and do a presentation with our 65% design. Will be a more developed design, but still gives us an opportunity to make minor edits if there are things that need to be changed. And then with that, we can move into the final design phase, which will be permitted, and it'd be a bid-ready set. And then at that point, we'll also come back and check in and make sure we've captured everything that you and the community had wanted in the project before it goes out to bid. The main reason we're here today is we want to hear from you and the community, if there's anything you believe we're missing, if the overall plan included everything that you're looking for as part of the community engagement plan, before we really start getting out there and talking to folks and having community engagement. So, the following next steps we are planning to do is create kind of the project branding, the marketing materials, the website. We are working on a outreach contact list with staff, and we can share that with you to make sure we're including all the groups that we should be talking to, developing, the key questions we want to go out to the community with and start meeting with them. So at this time, we can answer any questions.
Okay, before I open it up to public comment, I'm going to look to my colleagues and see if we have some questions. Councilmember Lang.
Just, I presume this is sort of part of the process, but one of the things that is striking to me is primarily outdoor space. The way people might use it would change with the seasons. Is that something that you would look at in terms of how it might be used during?
Yeah. Can you hear me fine? Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, absolutely. I think we plan for time of the day and we plan for seasons. And a lot of the input that we get from community engagement is how people intend to use the space, whether it's for business, as an extension of their restaurant, or places to sit during lunchtime between work. Are high school students going to come and eat lunch there? How does it function during an event? Is it just unbearably hot during an event, or can we do something to mitigate that without, creating a completely shaded space? So I think some flexibility is definitely some things we think about, but also, seasonality is 100% on our minds. So.
I'm particularly interested in how you're going to get feedback from our younger residents, because as a parent, I get feedback from them, even when I don't want it, But my 16-year-old tells me, for example, that they love our downtown, but they and all of their friends go to Mountain View instead. And the reason they go to Mountain View is because they can park and walk, because Castro is partially closed off. And so I don't know that that's an outcome we want. I don't think it is necessarily, but I do want to get the input from the folks who are actually going to use the park, because you'll get plenty of input from folks that may use the park for the next 10 or 15 years, but it would be really nice to hear from people who have 50 or 70 years ahead of them.
I'm going to let Noe answer the bulk of this question, but I just wanted to say we are doing a community engagement process in Emeryville, city of Emeryville, and we got a lot of responses from people who were 50 years old and 60, and then we pursued people, and we got a lot of responses from younger couples, and ultimately we reached out to the high school, and we went and talked to the principal, explained what we were doing. And the principal was very invested in what we were doing, because we were creating public space for them, for the children as well. So we were able to reach out to 5 classrooms of high school students. And what we found was the feedback actually dramatically changed some of the metrics that we were thinking about. Suddenly there's more emphasis on walking. There is more emphasis on the frequency of the bus service coming through, because not everyone drives at that age group. They want more active spaces. So to your point, we we realize that their feedback, specific feedback, has significant impacts that we don't often think about. So that definitely will be a consideration.
Yes, that's the most elusive, I think, demographic that we notice, right? And it's very difficult to get to young people. But at the same time, I also understand what you're saying, that it's really a critical demographic to really reach. That younger folks, young adults, young parents are important to reach. So one of the first things that we want to do, of course, is graphics. Graphics are really attractive for social media, for putting it out into the community, posters, just making this a known thing. Secondly, I agree with Karthik that it's really about understanding what they want, right? Understanding what are the key issues, the key elements that they want to include in the park, what they would do there, what they actually come to do in downtown. What we've heard over and over, especially from, you heard you talk about your teenager. I'm near there. And I think what we hear over and over is that there's nothing for young people to do, right? That's a common refrain that we hear. And so we want to understand what that is. And so how do we do that? Well, like I said, one is attracting them. Two, it's really about the tools that we're using. So we've talked about focus groups, or even, potentially a focus group of young people could be one. So we haven't defined those categories just yet, but I think that we're taking your feedback into account here. But it's also, secondly, using social media, using surveys, using electronic digital platforms that we know that young people are, tied to, as I'm sure you're aware, and actually not only just putting it out, but going to the schools and saying, "Hey, Mr. Principal," or "Hey, Mr. Superintendent, can you please put this in your newsletter," for example. Karthik is right. One of the key ways, and also a very challenging way to do it, is to get into the high schools directly. And so for that, we would need contacts with teachers or principals and others that have the space for us to maybe come either just do a briefing, a presentation, or perhaps something a little bit more, like a charrette, or something that happens where we get them to draw and give us their ideas a little differently. So we have lots of ideas. It's just a matter of putting them on paper.
Here's my concern about that.
Mm-hmm.
You need somebody that speaks teenager, right? Because when they tell you there's nothing for teens to do, these are the same people that will stand in front of an open refrigerator door and make dad a 3-syllable word and complain that there's nothing to eat while they stare at a full refrigerator.
Sure.
So, yeah, please find somebody who speaks teen.
Sure.
Sally, do you have any questions?
Well, the only question that came to mind while listening to the presentation is there's a lot more touch points with council than we're necessarily used to, and I didn't see the commission. So I know this is a work in progress, and you'll make the order fit our process, though we would love to see as much as we can of it, but it looked like there was an awful lot of coming back here. So I'll leave that to you guys. It's just an observation, yeah.
Councilmember Weinberg, do you have a question or no? Yes?
I have a couple of comments, but I can save those to the public.
All right. Vice Mayor, can you hear me? Did she drop? Okay. So, public comment. How many speaker cards do we have?
I have one coming. Looks like.
Yeah, I think you know who Maddie is. You can fill it out for her. All right. 3 minutes, please.
Okay. Hi. I love the presentation. I think it's awesome that we're doing a park downtown. As you know, I do public art with Altos. I'm not sure who the stakeholders are, but I hope that Altos will be involved. I've gone to a lot of public art conventions where people are creating amazing, immersive public art where you're interactive with it. And those are the kinds of things that bring people to the park, is when it's immersive and electric and ignites fun. Let's see. Sorry, I was running. Gordon Huther is really famous sculptor that is right here in Napa. He's an amazing artist that really creates space that people admire. He's been voted like the #1 sculptor for interactive art. Jen Lewin is a technician. She's a computer artist. She's a great person, a great resource for parks. And also this group from Canada, I'm just going to look up their name because I can't say it very well. It's Uda Sousa, and they recently did something at Adobe on the rooftop and around the bottom with the lighting. So even lighting can have public art and be really beautiful. So just keep all those things in mind, that those are what bring people into the park, is interaction and immersive things. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have any other cards that have come in? Okay, I'm going to bring it back to council for comments. We're not really deliberating on anything per se, but if the comments lead to some guidance, that's fine. So, Councilmember Weinberg, I'm going to start with you since you said you had some comments, but no questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm glad that both your firms are on board. Thank you to city staff for selecting what appears to be very, very competent public outreach consultants. So I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that we're moving forward on this. Like everyone else, I am really, really curious to fast forward a year from now and see what kind of input you're getting. I mean, this is something that's going to be front of mind on a lot of people. One thing that I would request, and I think would be appropriate, is if you're able to inform people to some extent where the funds are coming from for this park. And I say that because there's no secret that our public safety infrastructure needs improvements. This is something the council has been talking about for quite some time now, and I think we're all frustrated that we haven't gotten further on it than we have. But it remains on definitely on our front burners. And I'm certainly not asking you to try to convince people that this is a good use of money. That's not your job. Your job is to provide information. But I think that there are people out there in the community who will say, you know, parks are great, but we really need a new police station. We need to improve the firehouses. And that's a fair comment. But the reality is that there are different buckets of money for this project versus the public safety infrastructure projects. And obviously you don't have that information right now, but I think if you could talk to city staff just so they give you the information. And again, I'm not asking you to try to sell it to people who are skeptical or want money spent somewhere else, but I'd like you to be armed with information only for the purposes of educating them. Mayor, there's something that I wanted to touch on what you said. So I have 2 teenagers. They both go to the high school, half a mile that way, and we live 3/4 of a mile that way. And they're constantly telling me, "Dad, downtown's boring. There's nothing to do." And my response to them is, "Well, what do you want to say?" I'm like, you know, we want teen town. We want feet on the street. What do you want? And invariably, the answer is, I don't know. But trying to tease that information out from them would be fantastic. My son finally committed to something. He said, "Well, you guys should build a BART station so it's easier for us to go somewhere else." And I said, "No, that's not in the plan." But I also, just as a follow-up to that, I want to look at my colleagues and say, you know, we're community leaders and people look to us. The reality is that we get a lot of great outreach programs going, but many people just don't hear about them. They just don't know about them. So I think there is a burden that falls upon us to let the community know, hey, we're planning to build a park downtown. We want to know what you want to see in the park, what your ideas are. Here's a claret you can go to. Here's the website. Give your input. I'm going to be telling my kids that. I'm going to be giving them little cards that they can give to their friends. None of them are going to go there, but I'm going to do it anyway because I want to at least make the attempt to make sure that you're getting the information that you want. And I would reach out even farther than just this diaz to city staff to the extent that it's appropriate. There are community leaders in the room right now who have big mailing lists. Let people know, please, that this is starting to happen. When the website's available, when there are events coming up, promote it. The more people know that there's an opportunity to give input, the more input is going to be given. And finally, I want to add on to something that Sally said earlier. I also thought that there were kind of a lot of touch points, and certainly if there's a decision point, obviously that has to come to council on our agenda. But I think we're starting to use informational items more and more, to the extent that it's just an update. Here's what we're doing. I would look to city staff, and if a decision isn't needed, just put it on an informational item so everybody knows what's happening. And then, of course, if someone on the council sees a red flag or wants to give input, we can always ask to agendize it at a later time. So those are my comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Meadows.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I realized my last thing I meant to ask as a question, but I kind of made it as a statement. But so I won't repeat it because it already turned into a statement. But I will actually tag on to what Councilmember Weinberg said. It's not just, so there's a number of objections or concerns that you hear in public outreach. And so I think it would be useful for staff to provide you with what you're likely to hear. Another one is going to be, well, how is all this construction going to happen? And what's the construction plan? And what about the merchants? And so there's a laundry list that, again, your job isn't to sell, but you need to be aware of them and understand sort of how we're thinking about each of those objections, which are important, but hopefully manageable. That's what we're going to work on, and staff will work on too. So I think together they need to have that information so they can have an informed discussion. But I look forward to the plan. I think everybody likes to talk about parks, so it should be an interesting process. I think that's all I have to say. Thanks.
I think we should start creating an FAQ document immediately, because that's going to answer a lot of those questions without, creating an impetus to be a middleman per se. Councilmember Lang, do you have some?
Yeah, just I am of course very glad that there's a process for public input, and I'm sure that's very important. The one thing I'll say is don't chicken out. Right, we live around where Steve Jobs worked, right, and he was famous for saying that focus groups can be a problem because a lot of times people don't imagine everything something could be, and they don't know what they want till they see it. One famous example I always like is that the only way the Eiffel Tower got built was he promised he'd tear it down in 20 years, right? And turns out they kind of liked it, right? So we're probably not going to put the Eiffel Tower over there. I understand that. But I'm just, in a way, sort of challenging you to, of course, take that input. There's a lot of great ideas in this community, and I'm sure you'll hear many of them, but also to be daring.
Vice Mayor. Okay, so I will sort of close the commentary from the dais by saying there's a certain amount of flexibility that we need to maintain that may not be evident in the RFP or in the communications that we've had so far. And so further to the Vice Mayor's point, there are several projects downtown that are contemplated. Some of them are very serious projects that already have, serious entities bidding or proposing, and some of them are more aspirational projects that require us to get a lot more ducks in a row. And so I would encourage you to engage with staff in discussion of the broader downtown context And I'm also concerned that we may be overly constrained in how we've defined the scope of this effort, because I think it's appropriate to consider, for example, parking that isn't co-located with this particular park. So as we look at parking downtown, the city owns a number of assets, lots of real estate, in particular, lots of parking lots. So it is possible that the right parking solution isn't necessarily taking up part of the footprint or going subterranean under the park. It could be pillar parking a block away or 2 blocks away. And so I would just ask that that flexibility be part of the public input, because the stakeholders will certainly want to weigh in on parking in Los Altos. And that's about all I have. So with that, the special meeting is adjourned. And we will reconvene in 11 minutes for our regular meeting.
Thank you, folks.
Sally did ask that. Sally asked if the commission was going to get involved. If you want to hear my off the record comment, they're not going to get involved. It's off the record.
I had someone tell me last night when I was talking about it, and they said, well, you know what, I would give $125,000 if the bus boys would just stay where it is, because I like driving up in front of, this is somebody, he said, can I come and speak? And I said, no, because you don't live here, this is the hills. He said, well, I'm married to everybody that lives there, and he's red socks, driving, parking, walking in the Dennis's seats on Sunday. Oh, you did the day after you. The only way to work with a woman is my son. I know that. He said it right now. No, I brought it. She said it's word. When they made their first noise was the last meeting in August. Up and down the peninsula, but in Menlo Park, but they got the publicity that they wanted.
Because they paid for a lot of ads in the Palo Alto Post.
No, not the beginning. What happened in the very beginning? I've got a file. The first time I went in, there was somebody who happens to have a name here in Los Altos, but both the husband and wife she was in her walk, got a ton of money. She walked in with 20 signatures. Four. 20 signatures. So mad that they started running half-page ads for a week in the paper, sign petition, sign.
One of the things we talked, so essentially it's getting these.
Most people, everybody in this town is low key, and that's why we like it. We came in, we loved the village. I've been here 57 years. Yeah.
You got me by 2x.
Did you come in 1968? You came in 19. Yeah, I gotta go. She can't stand this. She can't stand this. Anyway, I gotta be down with people. The whole thing is so disgusting. Because all of us, and people. Was it had somebody
Yeah, that's always something I think we look forward to. And of course, you know what, the first thing.
Oh, I didn't know about this part either until Menlo Park. Signatures, whatever, to make them.
For
No,
one
they're
house
not
or
gonna do it.
part.
There's old houses. Because they've already.
That's pretty shocking.
This is back in the day when it's like Mayberry.
Like, there's a good.
Yeah, those days were fast.
Some like that, units, okay? Well, you know what they did, they got the contract.
Yeah, it's like, people were a little, conditions, there's a little bit more
They
isolation.
came in, they said. For bids are coming in.
What's the term, there's silos?
They're coming in higher than we got it, and what, give us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Parking places, because you know, all the
Inclusive
poor,
of themselves.
and they don't have cars, that's part of it.
Yeah.
Stumbled across something, figuring,
Oh, it's,
hey,
varsity
said
parking
that
now.
when you
It's
put
a
in
little,
this housing, you
basically
gotta
kids
be,
parking. It
you
doesn't
gotta
have.
be. So they'll get somebody, they will come,
And then it has a nice field that's for.
to try to get,
Checking the
right,
ball.
because. Number.
Yeah, of course. Any parking. Well,
11th grade and 9th grade.
All around the neighborhood.
starting to
See?
make a list.
I don't. Oh, they're right. We don't need a park downtown anyway. We've got a park here, we've got a park across the street. We don't need a park downtown. Yeah, that's stupid. What about Neil?
I suggested.
You live on Neil?
You know my right?
Yeah.
Yes, that's, we would take that quite literally, very heavily.
That's the dumbest thing in the world. Of course, I probably can tell that I'm not from here originally, and somehow or other, the accent is staying with me. Well, where I come from, the state.
Almost.
And stick it out here, you don't pay our
Very,
taxes.
very.
I mean, look, we're gonna make our own rules here, just like you did. It is, I know, it is totally. Oh, yeah, did you guys? That said,
Yeah, that's the.
Okay. We are going to get started. Can I get people to take their seats, please, so we can get started? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please establish quorum?
Yes, Councilmember Lang,
Here.
Councilmember Meadows,
Here.
Councilmember Weinberg,
Here.
Vice Mayor Fliger, and Mayor Daley.
Here. All right, we had a closed session earlier tonight, and before we closed the session, we voted on a request from Vice Mayor Fliger to appear remotely under the just cause provision of AB 2449, and that vote was unanimously passed, and she is participating remotely. Now I will look to my colleague, Councilmember Meadows, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Please stand if you're able and follow me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we're going to take public comment on items not on the agenda. How many do we have?
I have one speaker card.
One. Okay. 3 minutes.
Clara?
This microphone? Dear council members, my name is Clara, a longtime resident of Los Altos. Today, I present this petition signed by nearly 300 concerned neighbors and Los Altos residents, urging you to halt construction of the proposed Grand Park transformer at its current hazardous location, and to work with us and PG&E to find a safer alternative. Our community's signatures reflect deep concerns about public safety, regulatory violations, and the lack of meaningful public engagement. The current site endangers children, pedestrians, and cyclists, violates city regulations, and was selected without adequate input from residents or safety reviews by fire or police departments. We ask the council to uphold democratic values by pausing this project and establishing a transparent process that allows direct dialogue between residents, city staff, and PG&E. Let's work together to ensure that decisions about critical infrastructure genuinely reflect community needs and protect the safety of all who use Grant Park. Thank you very much.
Hang on a second. I have a couple of quick follow-up questions. Who gathered the signatures for this petition? Who was involved in that?
Several people in the local neighborhood community.
Can you come to the microphone, please?
Can you come to the microphone, please?
Several residents in the local Grant Park neighborhood.
Who gathered the signatures? Who, as in the name?
All the neighbors, all the 3 or 4 neighbors in the Grant Park
which
neighborhood.
3 or 4?
Beg pardon?
Which 3 or 4?
Is it important to know the names? I could give you the names.
Yes, it is. I want to.
Okay,
to,
one of
to
them
gauge
was-
to gauge the merit of this petition effort. I want to understand who gathered the signatures, what they told the people when they signed it. So if you can't answer that question, perhaps you can follow up later with that answer.
I could certainly answer that question. You want the names?
Yes.
Peggy Chin. Ken helped us, myself, and Lynette Ng.
Thank you. Is the street in question a through street?
What do you mean by a through street? It's a cul-de-sac street with a curved, a
right.
blind
So there is a
curve.
sign on the street that says this is not a through street. So you're familiar
I don't
with
believe
the,
so.
No, there is.
There is no sign on
Doesn't
Grant
matter. I'm
Park
not going
that
to argue.
says there's no through street.
So the question is it a through street that traffic uses to get from one place to another?
It's a through street for traffic to get to the cul-de-sac neighbors, the end of the neighbors. There is no sign that says this is not a through street posted on Grant Park Lane. So
Do you know
I'm
how
trying to
many? Do you know how
understand-
many houses are on the cul-de-sac?
Hey, respectfully, Mayor, I'm trying to understand your.
No, I'm asking the question.
Okay.
So we're done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, you may.
One more
If there are
question.
any other questions from council members, please?
Do you have any insight as to why somebody who lives several towns over, like at Santa Clara, is interested in the placement of a transformer in our city?
Because we asked all the participants that visited the site, These are participants and parents that bring children and bike around that area. They're very concerned about public safety. So therefore, if they're using the park, they are very concerned that you're setting something that's in the blind corner and blocking visibility.
Okay.
Councilmember Weinberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm looking at Google Maps right now on Street View, and there is a sign that says not a through street.
Okay.
That's at the corner of Grant Park, Lang, and Holt. So at the entrance to the
Okay, I
cul-de-sac.
apologize because I never noticed it. I've been living there 30 years and I never noticed that sign. I must it must have slipped me.
I calls into question your powers of observation about the rest of the things that you're concerned with about this transformer. If you can't see a sign that says this is not a through street, well, how am I to take the rest of your observations at any value if
Mayor,
you don't
Mayor,
see a sign? Go ahead.
I
Seth.
ask a
Yeah.
question? Okay. So, Mr. Liang, when you all were asking questions, did you tell
Mr. Ng.
Mr. Ng, but former council member Liang is your wife, correct? And she gathered signatures, you said?
She helped gather. She
Okay,
was
thank
one of
you.
the participants.
Okay, so when you were all gathering signatures, did you happen to mention that this would delay and block the improvements to Grant Park that this council and the former council, all, including your wife, voted to approve and move forward? Was that part of the description when you asked people to sign this petition?
When you talk about delay, can you identify the delay? Because I've heard several people say this would be a 2-year delay.
I have no time period. I'm just know it will be a delay.
It
We all
will
know
be a
that.
delay. And I don't know if my wife was involved in voting for this because,
Every time.
okay, it was voted for it, but there was no participation from the residents at all. There was no view. No one had any view. And you,
I'm trying to ask you some questions.
I want to
Yeah,
call a
we're-
point of order.
Yes,
I mean,
thank you.
You've asked clarifying questions, and I
Yes.
think it's becoming a debate. So.
Yes, it sounds that way.
All right.
Thank you.
I think the questions have
Yeah.
clarified things some.
okay,
Thank you for your civic involvement, and we will take this into account. No, your time's up. Thank you. Let's see. All right, the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar, and I will look to my colleagues and see if there are any items on the consent calendar that they wish to pull and discuss separately.
Mayor, I have a question for my colleagues. I don't necessarily need to pull it depending on the answer to the question. So, agenda item 5. First of all, thank you for the clarifications on the resolution. I think those were helpful. There was one other point included on the Q&A, and since I'm following up on it, you might guess that I asked the question for Q&A, but I do feel that the resolution in point number 3 takes $5 million as a given. I had suggested in the Q&A an alternative that was more open-ended. Is council interested in me pulling that? So we briefly touch on that. Okay, I've got one thumbs up. Do I have, so I think I will pull that item. It should be a brief discussion. We'll cover it then. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, so this is how we're going to do public comment. We'll take public comment now on all the items on the consent calendar, with the exception of the item that was just pulled. And when we deliberate on that item, we will take public comment on that item in particular. So are there comments on the public comment on the consent calendar at this time?
No, there are not.
Okay, so I look to my colleagues to get a motion to approve the
I'll
consent
make
calendar.
a motion to approve the consent calendar except for item 5.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right.
Councilmember Lang?
Yes.
Councilmember Meadows?
Yes.
Councilmember Weinberg?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fliger? Mayor Daley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
So we will go ahead and take item 5 right now. Are there comments specifically on item 5? Any public comments?
I'm sorry. No, there are not.
Okay.
So would you like me to address?
Yeah, please,
Yes.
Councilmember
So
Meadows, please.
in Q&A, I had mentioned the concern by which I was expressing that the resolution seemed to imply that in bullet point 3, that one of the criteria was must provide an analysis to the city of how a city contribution towards the project requested $5 million would be best received in this process. My suggestion was that that bullet point could be more open-ended, since that $5 million came out of a study that we have less than 100% confidence in. And of course, if they were able to raise enough funds, the campaign committee, we of course would be happy to not give $5 million. So I had proposed in Q&A an alternate wording, but I would defer to my colleagues. But what I had suggested was, must provide an analysis to the city of whether any city contribution towards the project up to the requested $5 million is needed for this process.
I prefer your wording.
So do I.
I do too. The only thing I want to say for the record is that it's the fourth bullet point on the amended resolution that was sent out.
I'm looking at the old one. Thank you for that. Yes.
Vice Mayor, do you want to chime in here? Okay, so we're all in agreement. Let's, how do we need to handle this? Do we need a motion?
You can make a motion to approve it as amended.
Just double checking. I believe I asked if there was any public comment on item number 5.
Correct, and there was not.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, then
So we need a motion.
I can make a motion that we approve the resolution in item number 5 as amended in both the revised resolution and per the discussion just now on the dais.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Councilmember Lang?
Yes.
Councilmember Meadows?
Yes.
Councilmember Weinberg?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fliger? Mayor Daley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. We are going to move on now to our discussion items. Number 7, special events as government speech. And we do have a staff report to start, right? Okay, good.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members. I was trying to write that as quickly as I could, so I took notes on the last one. Before you is a presentation on special events as government speech, and I have a presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards. The policy question before City Council today is, would the City Council wish to continue sponsoring special events by adopting the sponsored special events as government speech? A little bit of background for the council. In 2007, the city adopted Los Altos Municipal Code 9.25 governing special events. And then in 2015, adopted Resolution 2015-23 listing the city-sponsored special events that's still in effect. And then 2023, 2 years ago, the City Council amended Los Altos Municipal Code Section 9.25 for a little clarification and more control over special events moving forward. So what triggers government speech? Sponsorship via in-kind use of city property or services. And so the decision impact of there was a Supreme Court case that was mentioned in the staff report that you've have a copy of. The city must adopt city-sponsored events as government speech by resolution of the City Council, which is before you today, and staff would be able to go back and add that as a government speech. And they must create a standard process for events to become sponsored. So the next item that you're going to address is potentially creating a policy and a process for how events would become government speech and sponsored events accordingly. And so accordingly, the policy question before City Council tonight is, would the City Council wish to continue sponsoring special events by adopting them as government speech? If yes, city staff will be happy to amend the existing resolution by determining that they qualify as government speech and return at a future City Council meeting. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
In-kind support from the city, please distinguish that from fee waivers for use of city property.
So I'm looking to the city attorney, but my understanding is that for special events are a different process than
Yes.
fee waivers. And
Yes,
so
I'm looking for I know the answer. I'm trying to get it out so the public can hear it.
yes.
Well, giving the use of city property without renting it or permitting it, I mean, through a fee, it's like a fee waiver. But use of city property and also contributions of city money into an event becomes government action, government speech.
Or in kind, like if there's a budget impact, meaning police overtime or something like that, right?
Yes, we would, that would be.
So it's not just money. It would be government speech if we provide a check, dollars. It's also government speech if we subsidize from our budget in terms of police overtime or traffic control.
Or maybe maintenance services
Right.
for litter and cleanup. And it's not that what it will do is it will trigger the government speech doctrine. So
Right.
it isn't, you have to make a determination if you want to
Right.
open that up.
But our separate program, which is for fee waiver requests for qualified nonprofits, 501c3s, where they can get half or all of their facility rental waived, that is not government speech.
It can be, because it becomes city sponsorship, so we should. You look like you don't want to believe that, but.
I believe it. I believe it, but we have two programs. Yeah.
Well, yes, it would be government speech if you are, so if you want to contribute 50%, we should adopt those events as our speech, our events. And
Okay.
then, once we do that, then we can, then there are events and we can pick and choose.
Right. So this is a prospective normative argument about what we ought to do going forward. My next question is, what have we done? And I know the list that we have of official sponsored events, but how many fee waivers do we generally do outside of that list? Or have we done? And do we need to change policy to go, to deal with this?
Well, if we if we reduce fees or allow people to use the community center for certain community events, but there is no other sponsorship by the city, then that would be allowed. We've done that before with certain cultural events. And I think, Gabe, you.
So to go back to the previous question, Mayor, we have a defined council-adopted policy for fee waivers. It includes being open to the public, not religious, not political. If an organization is following that procedure and it qualifies, the fee waiver would not qualify as government speech.
Yeah, and what I was thinking about, he was thinking of like cultural events and things like that. I was thinking if we pay 50% for the homecoming parade, or we pay 100% of the homecoming parade, that is going to trigger the government speech.
Thank you. Forgive me. I didn't ask in a clear enough way. The city manager
He was
responded to
thinking
what I
one
was
thing,
thinking
yeah,
of,
and I
which
was
is
thinking
fee waivers for rental of the community center or the garden house or any of the
And
other
we-
city facilities that we.
We do have a policy
Okay.
for that.
Okay.
And
So I just want to clarify for the interested public that waiving fees for a qualified nonprofit, unless it's accompanied by additional contributions from the city, is not considered government speech and doesn't require resolution of sponsorship. Is that a fair summary? Thank you. Do any of my other colleagues, Councilmember Weinberg?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start with a follow-up to this. Forgive me, I am still confused. So perhaps I am not remembering correctly, but I believe that last year, and I don't know about this year, but Mala was given a fee waiver, or at least in part, I don't believe that they are a nonprofit organization. Maybe they are. Maybe that's where I'm wrong. But this was a cultural event, but it was not put on by a nonprofit. It was put on by a community organization.
So they, that specific group submitted a fee waiver, which was reviewed by Parks and Recreation staff and found to be fully compliant with the policy. So I'm not sure.
This year?
Both years.
Both years, okay.
So I'm not sure if, I would have to go back and look if Mala is a nonprofit or if they had another nonprofit sponsor that event. But the review by staff showed it was a compliant event with the city's fee waiver policy.
Okay, that's good enough for me then. Switching gears, let's say that the council is interested in co-sponsoring an event, and organization 1 and organization 2 both want to be co-sponsors. Can the council decide that we want to partner with organization 2 and cut out organization 1? Or are we obligated to give both organizations an equal say? And can we discriminate against an organization that we feel is inferior to another?
Well, if we adopt the government speech policy, essentially like the flag policy, you will be able to pick and choose.
Okay, thank you.
But we need a policy so it's not ad hoc and it has clear direction and standards.
So what's before us tonight is really to approve the existing policy that we've been operating under for government speech and sponsorship, and B, to approve or change the existing list of sponsored events and government speech. Is that a correct summary of what's before us for item 7?
Number 7 is just adopting special events as government speech. The next item would be an analysis of current special events.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to look at my colleagues. Does anybody want to see a policy change regarding the special events policy?
Isn't that item 8? That's the next item.
So no, item 8 is the list of things that we sponsor, right?
No.
That's what Anthony just said.
So
that's what I asked.
I'll clarify.
I meant to ask.
Sorry, I'll clarify to be especially clear. So item number 7 is just adopting an additional whereas to the resolution for special event sponsorship that says, whereas the city council finds these special events as government speech, which allows them to continue to be sponsored. And then the next agenda item, number 8, would be amending that resolution so the individual events, if you wanted to adjust sponsorship levels, as well as adopting a sponsorship policy that's presented before council.
Okay. So item 7 is just about adding the whereas to the policy that confirms that it is government speech. Now, do we have any more questions? Go ahead, Vice Mayor, please. Yeah. Yes.
Yes, it's very similar to like the flag policy. When we adopt, when they submit an application and we choose to fly the flag, we're adopting that flag as our speech. And so for these events, we're adopting those as our speech. And it will, and then if we adopt all of them, then we don't have to go back and they don't have to come back on a case-by-case basis. Yes, we would have to do that, but we have been, what? Oh, we have been, we have a list and things come on and off the list. And what this would do is really clarify really what are these events that we are sponsoring or that we're adopting as our events. And so, and then we'll make new events have to come back on a case-by-case basis, sort of like the flag policy. I tried to explain this to someone else, like when we had all of our park and lieu projects for the budget, we put them all in one big list and we made the findings for all of those. This will sort of clean up our special events, get them all, a new list of them, get them all adopted as our speech, and then the new ones coming back will be done on a case-by-case basis. But we're just trying to get them all, the events kind of ratified again. And if you want to remove or add some at this time, you could do that too, so.
But that's an 8, right?
Yeah, just a second. Councilmember Meadows, did you have a question?
Yeah, I think it's a clarifying question because maybe we could use a little clarification. So item 7 is asking us to adopt a whereas that we don't have. You'll write one if depending on what we say.
It's providing direction to staff to come back with an amended resolution at the next meeting, preferably on consent if given that direction, and then we can do that.
So it wasn't clear that we were focused on a whereas because there wasn't a whereas. So that's one point of clarification. And the other thing we're supposed to do on this item is look over the list of events and, have a brief discussion if any of them warrant it as to whether they belong on this already pre-approved government speech list, and or if we want to remove any. I think that's what we're doing on this item, correct?
Yeah. And the list of the events really are as part of item 8.
Oh, the list is part of 8 too. Okay.
Sorry for that confusion.
We tried to break it out into 2 sections where it could just be adopting the sponsored special events as government speech,
and then the
provide
policy.
Direction.
Okay, so you're just asking us, are we open to adopting this as government policy?
Yeah.
Not even a generic this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Councilmember Weinberg.
I'm sorry. It's clear as mud to me now. So for this item, you are item number, what is it? 7. You are asking us to.
The policy question before council is: Would you like staff to return with an updated resolution that will adopt special events as sponsored special events as government speech?
So if we're asking you to come back, what is the purpose of the resolution in item 8?
It's so item number 8, I'll touch on it next item, but really there's 2 questions there as well. And the policy is completely different than adopting the sponsored special event resolution. There's a sponsored special event resolution that lists out what we sponsor, and we are asking if you would like to consider it government speech in this item. Then the next conversation in item number 8 will be looking at the individual events, if there's any adjustments City Council would like to make. And then after that, adopting a special event sponsorship policy that provides clear guidelines based upon the flag raising policy to go through for special event organizers.
Yeah, for future events.
All right, hang on a second. Hang on a second. Just hang on.
Anthony, let me try to paraphrase because I don't think you clarified enough based on the body language. Item 7 pertains to a modest change to our sponsored event policy insofar as, due to court precedents, we now need to establish that policy in the context of government speech. Is that correct about solely item 7? Forget about the events themselves in item 8.
Yes.
That whereas is because of court precedent, we now need to say that our policy for sponsored events is government speech. City Attorney, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, but I'm sorry to beat this horse as dead as it is, and this will be my last point taking it because I know I'm just slowing us down at this point. But the proposed resolution for agenda item 8 says this is going to be the new policy, and one of the items in there is there's going to be the whereas that Anthony mentioned it would be in future resolutions if that's what if the council wants to adopt this as government speech. So I don't understand why that resolution is a part of item 8 and not this item. It seems like if we pass the resolution in item 8, item 7 is neither here nor there.
So item number 7 really is adding this incorporated whereas to the existing special event sponsorships that we have. And item number 8's resolution is forward facing for new events that come along and would like to.
Where is the whereas? You mentioned the whereas several times. I see the whereas as I think item number 2 in the attachment to the resolution, which is a part of item number 8. I don't see a whereas in item number 7.
I don't believe we have it because we wanted to just get direction from City Council and then we would incorporate it to come back.
Okay.
We apologize, it's not in the staff report.
Thank you very much. Everyone else I think got it. I'm sorry that it wasn't clear to me. I overthought it, I guess.
All right, let's do public comment on item number 7.
I have no speaker cards on this item.
Okay, now we will deliberate, and I will look at my colleagues to see if somebody wants to offer comment, or I would entertain a motion if we want to go that route right away. Councilmember Weinberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the council direct city staff to prepare a resolution continue sponsoring special events by adopting sponsored special events as government speech. Is that what you're looking for? Okay, I got that part right.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Lang.
Yes.
Councilmember Meadows.
Yes.
Councilmember Weinberg.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fliger. Mayor Daley.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, now we're going to move on to item 8. And this is where we have a chance, if we want to modify the list of events that are approved government speech. Is that a correct interpretation of 8?
Yes.
And there's no additional staff report or anything like that on 8, right?
I have a presentation.
You do?
I have a
Go for it.
presentation that I'll go through. There's 2 policy questions before City Council for item number 8, and I'll touch on them. Would the City Council wish to adjust the special event sponsorship for any of the events that are in the resolution from 2015 moving forward that we can incorporate now that we know to add the whereas clause? We can also make these changes and bring it back to City Council for approval. And then would the City Council wish to adopt the resolution that will create the new Los Altos special event sponsorship policy that creates a uniform policy moving forward for future new special events or existing that are not sponsored that would like to be? And so the background, and I've already covered this, I'll skip ahead. The special event process, I wanted to walk you through that so you understand. We receive a complete application from an event organizer. We host a pre-event meeting with an organizer, and then we provide a cost estimate for city services. The majority, all of the city services are really focused around street closures. So we're talking about maintenance crews that need to go out and deliver barricades, and then police department that needs to clear the roads of vehicles and make sure that they're shut down for events. Ideally, the organizer hosts a very successful event, and then we invoice the organizers for city services. When they are sponsored, they do not receive the estimate or the invoice because we are sponsoring the event at 100% or 50%. We do 50% invoice to those organizers. So sponsoring current events. This is the existing resolution of special events from 2015. I just want to call out that City Council does not need to make any adjustments tonight if individuals from the public or the council do not wish to adjust events. We have not reached out to all of these specific event organizers to tell them to come and present a case on their event. But you do see that there is an asterisk for an event that is now a city coordinated event. That's the Glorious Fourth celebration, and then Veterans Day are both city coordinated now. It is okay to continue leaving them in the resolution if they ever revert back to not being a city coordinated event, but as for now they are. And then there's two events that have not happened in the last year, which are denoted by the upward arrow. It's the Fall Festival and then movie nights. And then there is a couple amendments just cleaning up the document based on new event titles from event organizers. So the fully sponsored events are the Pet Parade, the Homecoming Parade, and the Festival of Lights Parade. You can see the date and then obviously the sponsorship level there. You can see the half-sponsored events here. All of this information is in your packet as well. I did also provide in the QA, I'm guessing that that would be a question, a rough cost estimate for what these dollar signs mean. $1 really represents that there's just an application fee. You're just paying for the application fee. $2 signs is you need the street closed for a shorter period of time. 3 is a little more frequency of closures. 4 is a large scale closure for either a weekend or it just happens on a much more frequent basis. And then $5 signs means we need a lot of the city staff. That's a lot of city services that are being used to shut down the streets for a big event, and that requires a lot more maintenance services as well as the police department. And then these are some of the non-sponsored events that have been happening. And as you can see, most of them are a single dollar sign, so they are just paying the application fee and reviewing with staff moving forward. And so sponsoring new events. So before you tonight is the second question is creating a standardized policy and process very similar to the flag raising policy. I know City Attorney Houston references a lot, and it really is based upon the flag raising policy, and I want to make sure you guys know that. And these sponsorship applications would come before City Council. So city staff would receive the application, the individual would express interest in sponsorship, and then we would come before City Council for that request, either to add it as a continually sponsored event or a one-off sponsored event. And then the council would choose to sponsor and adopt as government speech. So you would need to have that additional whereas clause we were talking about. And so the two policy questions, I hope this was clear, and I want to make sure I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions to make sure everybody understands. You are able to adjust the special event sponsorship for any of these events moving forward. You absolutely do not need to if you do not feel compelled. But city staff is, and then the second is to adopt the resolution to create the special event sponsorship policy moving forward. So we can have a concise policy and process that will be a little more streamlined moving forward. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
We'll look to my colleagues to see if there are questions. Vice Mayor?
That is a great clarifying question, and the answer is yes. It's only for the city services that are provided for the special event.
Process. Is it any level of sponsorship? So, for example, the past $1 sign, does it still have to go through this process, or is it 50%, referring to what the city attorney had mentioned, a 50% mark earlier?
In the special event code that was adopted and was attached in the QA 9.25, you only are able to half sponsor or full sponsor events. So there's only two options within the code section.
So it's that 50% or more that would trigger this sponsorship process.
Those are the only options that would be available for sponsorship for an event.
But if council tonight, for example, wanted to change that to say 25, I'm not proposing that, but okay. But right now, the way it's defined, it's that 50% or 100%.
Did that get changed in 9.25 with the last amendment?
It's always been
Yeah,
50% and 100%.
Yeah.
It was just changed. Staff wasn't a fan of 50% and 100% sponsored, so we did half sponsored and full sponsorship. It was a linguistic.
And if you want to change that, we'd have to bring 9.25 back to change the ordinance.
It's okay. Thank you. And then the last question, just to clarify the process council is being asked to approve, look at the list, the current list, approve it, add, take off, whatever special events we want to do. But what is the process going forward? So let's say there's a new event, a new organization that wants to put on an event in Los Altos. Would they need to go through those steps you showed? Like they have to do an application and then they request, sponsorship from the city, and then that comes to council for approval?
Correct. So they would apply as a special event, any of our special events, but then the additional step is they would ask for sponsorship, and that would trigger having to come before city council for sponsorship.
And then at that time, when they come before the council could decide, is this just a one-off and we're just doing this event, or would we like to bring the resolution back and add it to one of our legacy type sponsored events? So they could be added to the resolution that we're going to be bringing back at the next meeting.
Right. And the reason I'm going to circle back to why I asked about the 25%, because there's some organizations that are not familiar with our processes. And so if they're not able to get the application or request in order to get it on the council agenda to ask for the sponsorship, does that mean they're basically out of luck? There's no administrative layer to that, like if it's just to approve it.
If it's a special event, yes, they would need to follow the process that we're now putting in place and submit in time for us to be able to bring to city council.
To clarify, council's not approving government speech that council doesn't approve.
So sponsorship largely seems to be, well, not completely, somewhat related to cost. And so the more dollar signs, the more likely the city is to be a sponsor. But I see one exception to that in the Head West market, which is a $3 sign cost to us, and yet we have no sponsorship. So we must be providing in-kind services to a great extent, but we're not sponsoring. So I guess my question is, it doesn't have to be city sponsored, but it could still be a very expensive event. Is that correct?
Correct. The organizers of the event would just need to pay for the city services that they're using. I do want to note that a lot of the events that have the $1 sign also correlate with newer events, and this hasn't been reviewed since 2015. So it might not necessarily be that they're not sponsored. It's that they're newer events, or maybe they wouldn't have been a special event under the old ordinance that was a little more limited in what was a special event.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm getting more confused. I'm stuck on Head West. So Head West is paying for the city for all the costs.
Correct.
Okay. So really sponsorship then is defined by, if an event is not sponsored, that event is picking up all the dollar signs, whether it's $1 sign or 15. I know we don't have 15. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Councilmember Lang?
A question on the second list there, the one that's just the sponsorships. It shows there's Bus Barn Follies 50%. How is that? The rest I get, they're street closures, there's things like that. The Bus Barn is the same thing as usual. Like what's special about that?
So in my time here or in my time looking at special events, I've never seen it come as a special event. So I think that's an old. It used to be a special event that was applied for at one point in time. We don't receive it as an application.
I have a question for the city manager following up on that. We do the maintenance. I mean, we should take this off the list. We're I mean, we might need to treat this separately. There's a lot more to it than just sponsoring the Follies, and we're not really sponsoring the Follies, but we're sponsoring the theater group and providing a lot of maintenance and storage and a facility and everything else.
So I think certainly and we have a separate agreement for that. These events are what were adopted in 2015.
Right. So if we had an appetite to change this list, if for no other reason than to reflect the actual on the ground reality, we would strike that one from this list. Okay. Other questions? Councilmember Weinberg, you? No. Okay. Public comment.
I have 3 speaker cards. The first speaker is Scott Hunter.
All right. 1 minute.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Scott Hunter. I'm the Executive Director of the Los Altos Village Association. And I wanted to talk about the underwriting of the various special events we've been talking about tonight. So our downtown is thriving due to a wide array of fine shops and eateries, the placemaking elements such as sparkling tree lighting, colorful flower pots, and the engaging family-centric events that we produce, the Los Altos Village Association produces throughout the year. Currently one-of-a-kind Choco Stroll, to the St. Patty's Beer Stroll, to the recent downtown Easter egg hunt, we ensure that there's something going on for everybody. That includes the Farmers Market, the Art and Wine Festival, the beautiful downtown Halloween, Holiday Stroll, a number of events that are on your list. These are all benefit our residents, families, and small businesses by contributing to our community's togetherness while creating a pride of place. Downtown vibrancy equals economic vitality, and while we believe all of LAVA's events are beneficial to our business members and the community, data from the movement tracking site Placer AI clearly shows that the Los Altos Arts and Wine Festival and the Downtown Farmers Market are particularly integral to this vibrancy. These events dramatically increase visits to our downtown.
Thanks, Scott. I have a quick follow-up question, which is what else did you want to say?
I just wanted to say that our events do provide for the economic vitality of downtown as well as what our community enjoys. Did you have a follow-up question?
The next speaker is Shannon Geary.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Shannon Geary, and I've been a resident of Los Altos for 8 years. I'm currently the Vice President of Los Altos Village Association, and I'm my 3rd year on the board. I have also spent 5 years as a member of the LAVA staff, and I'm currently employed by the Los Altos Community Investments. I'm here tonight to speak in support of city sponsorship of downtown events, specifically the Farmers Market and the Arts and Wine Festival. Through my various roles, I've seen firsthand how these events contribute to the vibrancy and quality of life in our community. They give residents a reason to gather, connect, and celebrate our shared downtown space throughout the year. These events also directly support our small business community. I've personally worked to attract new businesses to downtown Los Altos, and our robust calendar of events is consistently one of the strongest selling points. Business owners see the value in these events through foot traffic, visibility, and through higher sales. In my role, I have access to sales data, and it is clear that shops and restaurants see a noticeable boost on event days. These are the times when our community shows up and supports local businesses. Special events also introduce downtown Los Altos to new visitors, many of whom return to shop, dine, and experience all of our downtown has to offer. Supporting these events is not just a nice to have, it is a smart investment in the ongoing vitality of our downtown. Thank you.
Okay. No, yeah, nicely done. Next.
The last speaker is Joe Fusco.
Good evening, council members. I am president of LAVA, Joe Fusco. And when I first moved to California and enjoyed the farmers markets out in the beautiful outdoors, I was blown away. I thought these things happened by magic. And of course, they don't happen by magic. There are very hardworking nonprofit organizations that sponsor these things. And LAVA is one of those organizations. It's hard work and we're good at it, but we need your support. The financial and logistical demands of running these kind of programs has led many other cities to cancel their events or downsize them, especially after the COVID pandemic. I'd like to see Los Altos rise above that trend. If we want the magic to continue, I please ask that you consider lending your full support to LAVA in your special events resolutions. In my opinion, it's a very good deal for the town. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to bring it back for deliberation. We can leave this list alone for now if we want to and do nothing. Is that correct? Yeah. I don't have a lot of basis upon which to assess each of these events at this time. I can say I think the Follies shouldn't be on the list based on what we've already discussed. And I suppose, you know, I might look at the Corvette event and wonder why we're sponsoring that and look for some rationale there. But but even that is it's really based on not knowing much about that particular event, and there could be a very good rationale. So my own inclination is to leave it as it is for now, and you know, take changes to the list up when we have maybe some additional events that have been suggested that we should be considering adding. It could be that we need to add the farmers market or, you know, something like that. So that's my inclination on this. And I will go ahead and hand off to Councilmember Weinberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for staff or maybe the city attorney based upon the mayor's suggestion. If a new sponsor comes forward and wants to sponsor, say, movie nights, since they're a new sponsor, would they have to go through the same application process as anyone who wanted a new sponsorship of an event? Or because that event is already on the list, do they automatically get to come in and assume sponsorship? And where I'm going with this is if anyone can just say, I'll do it, then I would want to take them off the list because I don't want to sponsor any group without knowing who they are.
I think it would have to be the group putting on the event that would apply or be on this list. I mean, are you saying that a third party comes in and says, I want to sponsor that event? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. So I'm looking in particular at the Fall Festival and Movie Nights, which didn't have a sponsor last year. I mean, if some organization says, I want to sponsor it, I'll take over. I'd like to know who that group is. And I think the council should the council should know who it is and affirmatively say, we will adopt government speech with this organization.
Yeah, I think if the organization's going to change, they have to re-up and do a new permit, a new application, and get approved by council. That's how I would see it. So then we have control of who really is sponsoring it.
Okay, so that's a yes. They would not be able to just slide into place.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. So the American Nazi Party could not say, hey, movie nights are sponsored government speech. We'll put on, you know, Mein Kampf or something.
So
Yeah,
Mayor,
One scenario.
Yeah.
okay.
Councilmember Meadows.
Okay. So I had the same reaction as Councilmember Weinberg. I would propose, so first of all, looking at what have become the city events, I don't know if we call it the Glorious Fourth still, but the Glorious Fourth and the Veterans Day should come off this list. They are city-led events at this point. I think they're maybe both with Los Altos Hills, but so they should come off, and if they change form again, then they can come back. Because I am very concerned about a shell sitting there that hasn't been used. And so looking at both the Fall Festival, which I believe used to be a chamber event, yes, that was a chamber event, and that's been gone for quite a while now. That should go away. And the other one, I think movie nights, I thought they were city events, frankly. We closed our own streets and
the Parks and Recreation Department does host movie nights. If I don't know what movie nights
so
these are
I
pertaining to.
I would take that off too. So nothing that isn't happening and hasn't been happening for a while should go away. And city led events should be, handled separately as city events. So that takes care of 4 things that I don't believe should be on this list. And then I had the same question regarding why we co-sponsor Corvettes. I have gone to that event many times, but that's kind of micromanaging. So I'll just throw it out there that maybe someone out there could make a pitch for it, but of everything on this list, it's just like I don't get it. So, that's me, Mayor. I am done.
Councilmember Lang.
Yeah, I concur with removing the sort of dormant events and tidying up the list. The one request I'd have, because my guess is we're going to sort of give direction and then it'll come back. My request would be to reach out to the Santa Clara County Corvette Club, I believe is the people who do that event, and ask.
It's an event coordinated with Lava.
Is it coordinated with Lava? Okay, then perhaps just as a public comment before the next meeting, some summary of that event and what the city gets out of it would be helpful to continue embracing it.
It actually sounds to me like we don't have a voracious appetite to change the list from the dais tonight. My suggestion, if my colleagues support this, and Vice Mayor online, why don't we give guidance to staff to strike the things that are no longer conducted, or strike the things that are no longer sponsored events but are actually city events, and come back to us with the new list that may include additional events that staff thinks need to be considered.
Oh, the Vice Mayor has her hand up. I just
Yes,
noticed.
Vice
Okay,
Mayor.
Sorry.
Thank you. I just have another question for staff on the sponsorship process for new events, because I assume the list that's contained in the policy, obviously that's ongoing. They don't have to come back to us every year to re-up. They'll get approved because they're already a part of the adopted policy. But for new events, if they were to come before council, will we have two options? One, to approve them as a one-off, or two, to add them as part of our policy? Because I'm thinking maybe there are some new events that may come forward that as council, we're not comfortable yet putting them in our policy as an established event, but we may want to do a one-time sponsorship. Would the process allow for that, Mr. Carnesecca?
Staff already has an application that allows you to check a box of interest if you're interested in being continuous, and then the option would be for City Council to adopt as a one-time or add it to the resolution moving forward for continuous years.
Got it. Thank you.
It's actually 4 options, because we could do half or full for each of those. Councilmember Weinberg.
Thank you, Mayor. Generally, I agree with what Councilmember Meadows proposed. I'd also be okay with what your proposal was, but it does make sense to me to remove things that we don't need to be there. I'll make a pitch to keep the Corvette spectacular, and I prefer Mustangs, so I'll put that out there. But it's a $2 event, and it's bringing a contingency of people into the city that I think don't necessarily normally come to downtown. And we've heard public comment that when we have events, businesses do better. So given that there's nothing else like it kind of on the list, given that it's a Lava event and Lava has told us it puts more feet on the street, and given that it's probably bringing in people that don't normally come to downtown Los Altos, I would vote to keep it there.
I still see no harm, sorry, Mayor, in the comment that was asked for explaining the value you think it adds to the community. I don't disagree with what you said, but I would like to see the information. They didn't address it specifically.
And then are we keeping Bus Barn Follies or
So the question, look, let's do a straw poll. Do we want to actually make the de jure policy change right now? Do we want to change the list right now, or do we want to give the guidance to staff to come back to us with a narrowed down list of events that are still occurring as sponsored events? My preference is to have staff come back with it on consent, maybe.
I'd be fine with it on consent.
Yeah, if it's just just look over the list and narrow it down to the ones that are still ongoing sponsored events. And we can take up changes to the list, adding new events as they come up, or if any of the existing events would like to change the terms of their sponsorship and maybe seek increase from half to full, we can take those on a case by case. All right, so guidance is bring it back on consent, narrowed down, okay?
This item did have two policy questions. So
Right.
that's the first one. And then the second one is whether City Council would like to adopt the new special event sponsorship policy.
We did in item 7. Didn't we?
No.
No, we didn't adopt the resolution, but we gave guidance to come back with the resolution so
Well,
that we could adopt it.
So
yes.
This horse has been beaten enough. I will move that the council adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Los Altos, and the resolution doesn't have the rest of the title. There's a resolution that I was starting to read the title of. That's not a complete sentence.
Staff will bring
so
it back on
They're going to bring
consent.
it back. Great. I withdraw my motion, Mayor.
Okay, so you have what you need. It'll come back on consent. 2 resolutions to come back on consent, including a narrowed down list, right? Okay, good. So that takes us to informational items. No discussion or action. We do have a staff report for item 9, but it was in the packet. I don't know that we need we don't need a staff report on that, right? You don't. What do you need from us on 9?
It
Nothing?
was an informational item.
Right. So we have the information. So moving,
Correct.
and I
It
asked
was
for
just-
public comment.
it was just
right.
for-
Is there public comment on 9? Okay. 10, same thing. Council reports. I'll kick it off. Sunday was our spring egg hunt, and we actually had 2 e-bunnies because we're so dedicated to electrifying. That's why we have 2 e-bunnies. But anyway, thanks to staff, thanks to our sponsors, to everybody who was involved. It was an amazing event, super fun. I love seeing all the little kids. And, it took about 92 seconds from the moment I said, ready, set, go, for all the eggs to be picked up and 150 hours of work probably gone in a flash in in a few seconds. But anyway, thanks to everybody who was involved, and it was just a great event. Other reports? Councilmember Weinberg.
Thank you. I also attended the Spring Egg event, and may I say that the mayor gave a fantastic speech. It was a lot of fun. It's always a lot of fun. I always enjoy going there and watching the kids run, especially the really little kids going and trying to get the eggs. It's always a lot of fun. If you haven't been to one, I highly recommend that you try to go next year. Do you also want future agenda item suggestions, or you want? Okay.
Yes, we'll take those now too.
Okay. I would like to propose that the city agendize, well, it's really 2 things. One is a consideration of the city policy with respect to the disposal of firearms. And related to that, I would like the city to explore the possibility of a gun buyback program. And in putting the agenda item together, I would request that we also add the possibility of forming an ad hoc subcommittee. And I will say for the record that Councilmember Lang and I have Brown acted on this. There's a whole lot I'd like to say, but I don't want to incur the city attorney's wrath. But that is my request for a future agenda item.
I can be a third.
Okay.
Yeah. We Brown acted, and I was in agreement.
Okay, Councilmember Meadows.
Yes. So I did a fun thing last week. I availed myself of the Waymo briefing for electeds and had my first ride in a self-driving car. And I was sold pretty quickly, which is probably why they invite us, right? But it was actually an amazing presentation. I think Councilmember Lang, you may be going sometime soon. Oh, tomorrow, yeah. Great presentation. We're lucky here. It's been in San Francisco for a while, but this little pocket, Los Altos, Mountain View, and Palo Alto, the Silicon Valley pocket, has service, but they're metering us onto the app. So it's widely available in San Francisco, a little harder to get here. But it was very well worth your time. I highly recommend it. Unless you've already been waymoing around the city, then, maybe you don't need it, but it was very good. And then also, I think this will show up in the city manager's newsletter on Saturday, but there is a sustainability panel on May 4th, which is also the day that we're having, is it the electric living, the EV fair, whatever it's called this year. That happens in the late morning to early afternoon, but the sustainability panel is from 3 to 4:30 at Los Altos Hills Council Chambers, and it's 3 cities. I represent Los Altos, Pat Showalter represents Mountain View, and George Tyson represents Los Altos Hills, and we're going to be touching on what each of our 3 cities are doing regarding sustainability, so everyone is invited. Even though I'm sure it's going to be a gorgeous Sunday afternoon and there's like nothing you can think of to do, but anyway, that will be going on, so everyone is welcome.
Vice Mayor, do you have anything to report or agenda items to suggest?
Nothing to report, but I do have a future agenda item. I'm sure you all saw the email from Director Ellen Kamei from Foothill asking for the city's support for funding from the federal government for the Technology Institute and also for the Veterans Resource Center over there. And so what she's asking is just a letter of support from our council requesting these funds. We have no control about what's happening in DC and whether or not they'll get granted. But it's a letter to our Congressman, Sam Liccardo, supporting Foothill's request.
I'll second that agenda item.
If it's necessary, I'll be a third.
And I think she sent templates, Mr. England.
She did. She sent draft letters. Councilmember Lang, do you have anything to report or any agenda items to suggest?
No agenda items. A couple of things to report. On Wednesday, April 9th, it was a whole bunch of substituting for me. So I went from meeting to meeting. I did the VTA Policy Advisory Committee, Commission, I guess, which was interesting to me just to get more exposure to the way Measure B funds are administered, and that was Byzantine indeed, but very educational. Also reporting on hopefully progress on making biking safe along Foothill, which I'm sure we're all in favor. Then went on to the Cities Association for the Legislative Advisory Group and the board. I won't go through all of it. I'll just mention that the buzz at that meeting was about the very recent, at that point, LAFCO decision to disband the Southern Fire District. I was actually sitting next to Mark Turner from Morgan Hill, who was the lone dissenting vote, so he had some opinions to share. I just mentioned that particularly because as we decide what we're going to do about our fire arrangements, this seismic activity in that area is likely to have some effect on that. And then I'll just say the last thing was on Friday the 11th, I went on the Valley Water tour, which is very interesting to see the Anderson Dam, see the recharge ponds, see the levees. And the grand finale is the water purification plant, where they take water from the sewage treatment plant and do more magic to it, and then offer you a glass at the end of the process. And I drank my glass of water, my bottle of water, and here I am. They used to call this program Toilet to Tap, and then they got a new marketing person. It currently does not go into the drinking water supply. It goes to sweeten the Purple Pipe program that goes to like Levi Stadium and so forth. But very interesting program, and definitely a very important part of what's likely to become our future. So it's open to the public, by the way, if you're interested in that. If you want to drink some toilet to the tap water, you can.
I have a bottle. I didn't drink it. But you are reminding me that I failed to report something that I think our community is really interested in. So I chair the Water Commission, and we had a meeting last week, and water rates will be increasing for our residents by about 10% per year for the next 10 years. Yes. And that's 2.5 times the rate of increase that South County will be seeing. And it's tied to our infrastructure. We don't really have any choice, unfortunately. Everything is more expensive, and here in North County, we use more pumps and infrastructure, and therefore pay more for our water service. But yeah, that's the bad news. So anything else from anybody? All right, we are adjourned.
That's a record.
Thank you.